Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. I don't know what it is, but I get this surge of energy when we start these programs where I want to turn this into, a game show. That would be very exciting. Maybe one of those Maury Povich-ish kinds of programs where you are not the mother or the father or whatever. But I get that surge of energy that is so exciting to have guests on this program to talk about the work that they are doing and how they're changing their lives and the lives of the people around them, which includes you, because when you get to meet our guests through these programs, guess what? Now you are part of their group, because you have heard about them, and hopefully you'll go to their website and find out what they're all about. If they have product, books, cards, whatever it might be, check it out. I mean, it can't hurt a thing. Again, we lay out the smorgasbord here on Tell Me Your Story. We ask you to come to the table and partake of what resonates with you. Do not even go near something that is abhorrent to you, that just doesn't set right with you, what have you. However, I would ask you to come back to the table after taking something that you really enjoy, like that strawberry shortcake over there, or that avocado-laden omelet, or whatever it is that just hits you just right. It hits your fancy. Please come back, because that's how we grow. I mean, as I've shared on this program many times, folks, and this will actually sort of be part of what we're going to talk about. There were things as a kid I couldn't stand to eat. All right, now we're just talking about eating here, okay? Today, can't get enough. Hated tomatoes when I was a kid, can't get enough of them. I make sure to take the seeds out, though, because of the whole issue with inflammation, but that's something maybe we'll talk about. But please come back again and again and again. And obviously you have, because on SoundCloud's statistics, since January of 2018, we have over 86,500 listens. I don't know that that's number of people. It's just that interviews that have been listened to multiple times over the last 4.5 years. Is that about right? Yeah, it's almost 5 years. It's incredible. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be celebrating our 15th anniversary of this program. September 7 of 2007, we started this whole thing. And I'm so glad that we did. I've been wanting to do it, had been wanting to do it for a long time. And here we are, almost 15 years later. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, I'll tell you what, I've just spent 3 minutes talking about this program and how you can get involved in everything. And I'll share all of the other particulars as well later. But right now, returning guests, love returning guests, ladies and gentlemen. You know that this gal it's been a long time since she's been on the program, and I'm so glad that she's here with us. Back then, we weren't doing Zoom. I think we did it on the phone. Yeah, we did it on the phone. Mm-hmm. And she's back with us. Terra Bundance. Terra Bundance. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you've got Terra, you've got abundance, and then you have dance. And I think, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm not sure what that is, but Terra, welcome back to the program. It's great to see you and have you back here.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be back.
You've obviously done a lot since the last time we talked.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. I'd have to go back and listen to the interview to say, okay, well, what was she doing back then? And well, let's find out today what you're doing, because we're going to talk a little bit about, you have a lot of things going on. You have a YouTube channel, which is Terra Bundance, Tuesdays with Terra. So we can talk a little bit about that and the folks that you have on there. You also have products and services cooperative that you are building, Abundant Earth Cooperative. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's a membership website that'll be available to hopefully help you folks out by the end of October, if not sooner, and just a whole lot of other stuff. And again, we're all just really working our tails off. You also do coaching sessions as well, so we can talk about that as well. Mm-hmm. So that's also you are. I was looking here at your website, And your website, to be honest with you, and it's a good thing. I'm not being critical here. It's very simple. As
Yeah.
far as I'm able to figure out, it's only 2 pages.
Mm-hmm.
All right, your homepage, basic information about you and the work you do, and then the services page, if you will, the
Yes.
services you provide. How long have you been aware of and doing the things that you are doing? When did all of this start for you?
Oh, so I guess it depends on what level you're talking about because I've been aware and awake emotionally, spiritually since I was a kid, since I was about 7 years old. And so I've been doing the work that I'm here to do since very early in my life. Um, Now, in terms of business, I've been building towards this concept of the Abundant Earth Cooperative for about 30 years. And the fact that here we are talking, and the first time we spoke was sometime around 2008, I think, or maybe
Early on in the program, yeah.
2009. It
Hmm.
was pretty early and in your program, and I was doing something that I was calling the human tribe, and the human tribe was all about cooperative that connected people together. And I was so early in the process of trying to figure out what it meant to have a website, because at the time I didn't really have one. And now it has morphed and evolved into the Abundant Earth Cooperative. And what that's going to be is one of those subscription websites that you can go to if you're looking for help for anything, or you just want to find some beautiful art that touches your spirit and soul. And it's a cooperative of people all around the world that will be sharing their gifts and their talents and their abilities to support others. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd say all my life, and specifically on this project, about 30 years.
Wow. And I have to say that, and that's amazing. 2008 was when you were on the program last. And so we're talking about basically 14 years
Yep.
and how things have changed for both of us
Mm-hmm.
on different levels,
Yes.
which is really exciting. You have, and I'm always intrigued by this. I love to talk to our guests who have these. You have a deck of cards,
Mm-hmm.
a deck of, I believe it's called the I Am Oracle cards.
Yes.
And I've always found them to be. I must have a dozen or more different decks of cards from my different guests.
Me too.
And I'm thinking one of these days I'm gonna get a big old table and I'm gonna set up each set, and then I'm gonna start pulling cards from maybe a card from each one
I love that
and
idea.
see what the heck happens. I don't know. I might get hit by lightning. I may cause an earthquake. I don't know. But it is
I
so
love it.
fascinating, and I know there are people who actually, and there's nothing wrong with this, live their lives day
Mm.
to day by shuffling and pulling a card
Yep.
that day.
Yep.
How valuable slash important is that in one's day-to-day routine?
Mm-hmm.
Get up, make some coffee, go get cleaned, take a shower, brush your teeth, comb your hair, go to school, and then do it all over again. Pull a card.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, is that something that maybe you do every day, and why? Why would you do that? I mean,
Sure.
what about your intuition, which of course we'll talk about as well?
Absolutely. No, it's a good question. It's a fun question because I don't necessarily pull a card every day. There have been times in my life where I was pulling them all the time. I was pulling cards all the time, which kind of led me to creating my own deck, because what I've found over the years, because I've probably been pulling cards from different oracle decks, I don't really personally, I don't get into tarot that much. I love it when somebody else can do tarot.
Hmm.
That is not my forte. It's not where I tend to blossom the most to pull my own tarot cards because there's so much involved in getting to understand each of the cards.
Yeah.
I like the cards that are fairly simple, have maybe a page of information of description or explanation, and that's what my deck is just a simple, deck. But for me personally, to be pulling cards every day, it's not as important to me now because of my intuition, because of my trust of my own instincts and my connection to source and spirit, but how important is it to pull cards? That question for me is kind of multifaceted because for some people, prayer every day is important.
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
some people, praying over their food every day is important. For some people, reaching out to a therapist on a weekly basis is important. And I think that what we have to understand is there's 8 billion of us humans walking this earth plane, and we all need each other on some level or another. And so why not reach out for the things that make sense, or why not reach out to the things that support us on a consistent and regular basis until we can trust our own instincts, or until we know exactly who to ask for help or support? Because I think that's one of the hardest things for humans to do, is ask for help.
Yeah.
And so if we've got a card deck that's going to help us out in a moment when we might be too afraid to ask someone else for help or guidance,
Mm-hmm.
then why not pull a card? That it, to me, it just kind of gets us into believing a little bit more in the fact that we might be supported.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I know that it's taken years for me, and I go back to 1981. I was in a personal growth program called LifeSpring, and in one of the
Hmm.
exercises, they gave us this big, long, rectangular piece of construction paper and a Sharpie. And they said, we want you to write down a statement, an affirmation, if you will. And mine, I started out in cursive, and I said, I will listen to. And then below that, in all block letters, I wrote, and follow the promptings of my friend, who is my inner voice.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's easy to say, but not so easy to do, especially back then when I was just, I mean, I've been involved in metaphysics and so forth,
Hmm.
probably since I was, 17, 18 years of age.
Yeah.
Metaphysical Primer's Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yes.
So as time has gone on, there have been instances, as I have described on this program, where I don't, no, I don't, that's going to take me out of my way, or no, that's contrary to what it is I'm trying to accomplish, what my protocols are, what my rules are, what my blah blah blah.
Mm.
And it's like a knocking on the door, and it persists and persists. Now, I still have the free will to go whichever direction I want to
That's right.
go. But when you're listening, why are you listening if you're not going to follow? So,
why are you asking if you're not
why are
willing
you?
to consider the possibility that there's something else there for you?
Exactly. So I would acquiesce, and I mean, just in the last within the last 5 years, I have had situations where, let's say, on the financial area. Okay, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. Da, 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 da. Prompting, 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 prompting. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. No, 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 no. That's contrary to my protocol over here. Da, 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 da. Okay, all right.
Fine.
It's gonna go against my personality and my ego, but
Mm.
okay, I'll do it. And a few days after I did follow the promptings, are you ready for this? It blew me away in one sense.
Mm.
Had I not listened to and followed those promptings, things would have been a whole lot worse,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
than they could have been since I did follow. Things are financially. I'm not saying that I've got $5.5 billion in my bank account.
Right.
It's not really what I want. But things went in such a direction that this is
It's shocking, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
And even coming to the radio station to do this interview today,
Mm.
I was sitting at an intersection. Now, the street I was on was a one-way street. The street I was crossing was a two-way street. And I could have continued down the one-way street
Mm.
to the street that I normally turn on left and then head to the station. No, turn here. Okay.
Mm.
And okay, the light turns green. I pull forward, hit the turn signal, turn. Whoa, come back here,
Oop.
Mike. A little excited there. And I went down that road. Now, I came across a couple of obstacles along the way. Oh, isn't that interesting? I might have avoided those obstacles if I hadn't.
Right.
But then again, how do we know that that prompting isn't trying to lead us in a direction so that we can learn something?
That's right. That's right.
Talk
Sometimes
to us about that.
sometimes the process is harder than our minds want us to want to set us up for. And like, in other words, we might think going a certain direction is going to be easier for us, and that may actually be true, but are we going to learn on that path?
Yeah.
Right? It's exactly what you were saying. And so, yeah, when we are willing to listen and consider the possibility that someone else or something else has our best interests at heart. And by something else, it's usually going to be our inner voice or spirit or God or whatever we might want, a guardian angel, whatever we might want to call it. And then often that spirit source comes through other people. And so when somebody comes up to us and says something that is random, but they're like, I have no idea why I'm telling you this, but I feel like this is what I'm supposed to say to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's important, for us to listen. It's like you said, we can choose to be like, okay, cool, whatever, and walk away. Or we can be like, I wonder why that happened, and dig into that a little bit more. And it's the same thing with cards. It's like you can pull a card and be like, oh my goodness, this doesn't make any sense at all. Or you can pull it and then go, what is this trying to tell me? What am I supposed to get from this that's going to help me? And then so often, I'll tell you, so often it's so obvious that when you either pull a card or you hear that message, it's like, that's literally exactly what I was not hoping for, but that's what I needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
To get me to the next thing or to take me to the next level. So,
and there's another part of that too, that basically you are, there comes a point, such as you explained just a few moments ago, where you don't need to go to the psychic, the medium, the intuitive to get answers that you don't think you have.
Right.
I stopped going to them, not to say that I don't, every once in a great while, hey, could you kind of tell me something I need to hear right now, as opposed to, so what about my love life? What about my financial situation? What about my job? Because usually it's relationships, job, living location,
Yep.
and finances. Those are like the big four.
That's it.
I don't care anymore. First of all, I am where I am, with whom I am with what I have, doing what I love doing. I don't need to have those answers. I don't need them anymore. I don't.
They don't need to be as specific as we might have thought they needed to be. And that could have something to do with age, or it could have something to do with our society, or a combination of all the above.
I don't think it has anything to do with age.
No.
No, I don't think so. Nobody's old. They're just senile. No, I'm kidding. Terrabundance, I should say. It used to be Terrabundance. I think they both work. And we're talking with her here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is really a pleasure to have Terra Bundance with us here on the program to talk about the work that she's doing that is available to you. She does coaching. She helps people through. I tell you what, I really wish that you would set up a week-long seminar, workshop, experience for the country to get over what I thought we had gotten through in the 80s, victimhood. Oh my God, it's like from individual to group to regional to national, and I say this from the 2016 presidential campaign. It's like we're over the victimhood. We're up to our eyeballs and above in it. All of the
Yeah.
sudden, I'm going, wait a minute. I thought we went through this, or we finished with this, and yet there we were, right back in
Yeah.
again. It's somebody else's fault that
Mm.
we are where we are. It's like it is nobody's fault. We did, and this sounds rather strange, and somewhat self-defeating, but we did this to ourselves.
Mm.
If we perceive that we are in a bad place.
Yes. So interesting. Richard, Spirit nudged me this morning that you were literally going to bring up this topic.
Uh-oh.
I'm not kidding. I'm like sitting here, I'm like laughing because I feel like the spirits are giggling around me.
I was really holding my cards close to my vest. You know, I was trying not to let that out, but you know what? You
so
can't hide from spirit.
No, you can't. And so the reason the reason I got this or the kind of like nudging, like this thing happens to me where kind of my pineal gland or inside the top of my brain gets sort of tickly. It feels like there's something going on inside my head.
Yeah.
And that's when I know that spirit's online, you know, like I have a direct connection. And so it's doing that right now because what I was thinking this morning as I was getting my son up and about and we were doing our morning routine and all of that was the word responsibility kept shining, just like glaringly coming out into my brain. Responsibility.
And I mentioned before about working for 15 years at a Christian radio station. That is a filthy word to use within the context of certain philosophies. It is, you don't utter it. Because good things happen, it's God. Bad things happen, it's the devil. And
right.
So are you a marionette,
right,
being manipulated by forces you don't understand?
Oh.
Continue.
So it's real. I'm not kidding. Like I'm sitting here just going, okay, I was really actually prepared for this question, for this conversation, this topic, because what I was trying to think of was, you know, within therapy, within spiritual communities and cognitive behavioral therapy, things that support our mental life and our spiritual life hand in hand. There's a lot of concern around the word victimhood and responsibility, those two words. There's a lot of concern because in therapy, they want to help you understand that you're not responsible for the bad things that happen to you, right? So you can't, if somebody gets very, very hurt by someone else or some terrible thing happens to someone, that it's okay for us to be angry at the other person that caused, quote, harm in our lives, right? And so we have to be very careful in spiritual circles to not say it's my fault or it's my responsibility that those things happen. So there's a really like I don't know, a blurred line between those two things where you can say, yes, this terrible thing happened to me, and this person came into my life and did this thing. And I'm also responsible for the life that I've led and the choices that I've made up to that point. Right. So it's like a real, you don't want to say I'm the one, I'm the reason, or I'm the fault of, I'm the reason that this thing happened to me. So that's what was coming through my head this morning. It's like, be careful, Terra, about how you use the word responsibility.
Yeah.
And so I've been very cautious lately to be very careful when I talk to clients and say, okay, so those things happen for a reason. And they're based on the fact that you made all these choices that led to this moment, because a lot of people have been very traumatized, you know, had some trauma in their life that led to a certain experience that they've had. And telling them that they're responsible does not give them the opportunity to actually hear more. You know, they shut down. They go into fear, they go into victimization again, or they go into being re-traumatized. And so I think the number one most important thing in our lives is to be responsible for the experiences and the choices that we make. And it's the first thing I wrote about in my first book that I ever wrote.
What's the title?
So the title is The Butterfly Process: Tools for Transformation, by Terra Bundance, and you can find it on Amazon. And it is a tool. It's a tool book. It's like a workbook that gives you tools that process you through certain stages in your experience. And so one of the very first, I think the first one exercise I give is a breathing exercise, and then the second exercise I give, or tool I give, is how to take responsibility. And so recognizing that it is important, essential for us to evolve, responsibility is one of the first things that we need to know how to do.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility. And so the victimhood that's happening right now is that nobody wants to take responsibility.
No.
And so on our planet now, we have a bunch of victims and no one taking any responsibility.
And where are mom and dad when I need them, you know?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, my parents, it's interesting how my parents have shared with me in the latter years thus far about the reasons why they did or didn't do what they did or didn't do in regards to their children, myself included in that group.
Sure.
I remember following my first divorce, they shared with me some experiences that they had with my former wife. And I said to them after the divorce was long since over, well, why didn't you say something to me? He says, well, first of all, you didn't ask. Second of all, we don't, in essence, I paraphrase, we don't stick our noses in where they aren't wanted. It's only when you kids come to us and ask, do we not necessarily step in and solve the problem, but when we will offer our advice or suggestions. Now, with my first wife, there was a period of time early on when we were going through some struggles, and I said to my first wife, I said, you know what? We ought to go talk to my parents. I don't know why I didn't think about her parents, but anyway,
Sure.
because they've been married a long time. They've been through a lot of this stuff, and maybe they can help. And she said, okay. And so we did. We did. You know, and I think that's another thing that people are afraid of too, is going to someone who they know that they know that they know could really offer some good guidance and counseling, maybe even a certain level of objectivity. But they don't want to impose. No. This is our stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anybody else. But this is private between you and me
Sure.
and stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about? Because when we go out into public
That's
together,
it.
we affect and in some cases infect other
Yep.
people with our energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the responsibility there? Let's talk more about this. Terra Bundance is my guest here on the program. And by the way, folks, she does have, as I said before, she does have a website. I'm actually looking at the website right now. And no, that's not it. This is it right here. And it is terrabundance.com. That's TerraBund. BUND, that's right. ANCE.com, terrabundance.com. You can't miss it. And you can go there, find out about the sessions and the classes, find out a little bit about more her, connect with her. She is, we'll talk about this as well as we continue. Pardon me. She's a vocal empowerment instructor, a codependency, empath, and HSP coach. We'll find out what that is. Body intuitive, dream interpretation, Reiki, distance as well as local. And we are international as we are on the internet. We are Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and every once in a while, I kind of become plural, as you might have heard me there. We are, and we do this, and so forth. Only because, yeah, it's me. I'm the mouthpiece for the universe, in a manner of speaking. And that's not saying, oh, Terra, God just told me to tell you. I don't play that game, homie.
Sure.
That isn't my responsibility. Okay. But it's different the way you phrased it when you said, there's something I need to share with you,
Yeah.
and you can take it however you wish, and I'm
Right.
just going to offer it, and you can do with it what you will.
Yep.
It's just like the promptings. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know where the promptings come from, but it's all up to me. Talk to us. Let's talk a little bit more about this aspect, because I came up with this neat little story, and I'll keep it short,
Mm.
regarding responsibility. There's an individual, male, female, doesn't matter. They're sort of with their head raised, eyes closed, giant meadow they're walking through. They have their hands cupped out in front of them, holding this ball or this essence, and we'll call it their will, their individual will.
Mm.
And they're walking there and they're muttering to themselves, I just want to do God's will. I just want to do God's will. I just want to do God's will. God is hearing this, tears streaming down God's face. Oh my God, one of my own creation just wants to do my will. And the individual walking in the meadow tosses it up in the air, and it floats higher and higher. God catches it.
Mm.
And during all of this emotion that God is expressing, compressing that person's will down into the size of a baseball. I'm a big baseball fan, baseball analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And rears back and hurls that individual's will back to them like a 90-mile-an-hour Nolan Ryan fastball. Now, I could have said Oral Hershiser, I don't know, what the heck, Randy Johnson, D-backs fan from 2001. But anyway, sends that ball of will, hits that person square in the forehead, and says, then do something with the life I gave you. You are not a puppet on a string being manipulated by forces you do not understand.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot to unpack in that. But
Sure.
let's talk about this aspect of that versus this aspect we've talked about, listening to and following the promptings. It's almost as if the promptings were coming from an external source, let's say, an outside
Right.
source, outside the body, somebody else is telling us what to do. And so in
Mm.
essence, we've sort of given up our free will.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is just the opposite, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. That's such, thank you for that story. That was a really cool visual. I got it.
Oh, by the
And
way,
what
90,000 people in the stadium. Just
sure.
to put a bow on it.
Of course. Watching the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, Source gave us our free will, I say Source gave because to me, we're all part of that, right? We're all a part of that. So there's not like one separate entity that's like on high giving us the things that we carry around. We're all tuned into that vibration and we create that energy and essence, and we're from it, we're of it. It's just like fish in water, like God is water, but we're still part of water, and that, when we came into being as individuals, I personally believe that we came in with our gifts, talents, and abilities and offerings and awareness of what we're here to do. And then because that's who we came here to be. And then society takes over, families take over, friends take over. We start comparing ourselves to others. We compete for things and we forget all these things that we came in with. And there's a few of us on the planet. I just happen to be one of them who luckily didn't really lose a lot of that. I mean, I've definitely had my lessons. I've been divorced twice. I've had experiences that have given me more reminders of who I can be and who I'm here to be than I care to even talk about, because I've I share that with many people, but it's pointless because basically I knew who I was when I was 7 years old. I knew who I was here to be. I knew the things that I was here to do. But I didn't have life experience to be able to share that somehow with the world. And so life comes in and helps me build and grow, helps me learn the language, helps me understand, the energy, that how I'm supposed to get my gifts out into the world. And through that whole process, I never lost the spark of awareness that I am one with God, and God is always with me, and I have God on my side all the time.
Mm.
And so that forgetting piece is that holding your will in your hands that you spoke of.
Mhm.
Holding your will in your hands as if it's not already part of who you are. And then putting it outside of yourself and saying, God, please tell me your will. And God's like, it's literally in your hands,
Kind of like the Buddha looking for enlightenment.
enlightenment. Mm-hmm.
Stops looking.
Oh, ding, there it
Oh.
is. It only took him 40 days or whatever they say, 40 years
Exactly.
or yeah, I mean, but that's it. And they say the same thing about Jesus, right? Jesus went out, and then it
Mhm.
wasn't until the burning bush said, hey, you've already got all this knowledge and awareness within you. And, we forget until we remember. And then it's like we keep calling in those reminders to help us remember. And there's a point that in our lives, we have to, at some point, take that responsibility of what am I truly here for? One of the things that I ask my clients all the time, and even friends, friends have gotten very used to me asking this question. When they come to me and say, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? I feel like I've tried this and I've tried that. And I always say, what do you want? And they go, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, then there's your answer. And it's like, until, until you're not gonna know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like it could change tomorrow, but unless you choose to know, nobody's going to give you that answer. But
Yeah.
you can pull a card, or you can read a book, or you can talk to a psychic, or you can talk to a therapist to kind of give you glimmers of reminders of who you're here to be.
I have someone in my life right now who constantly is asking me that question. And I'm going, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me that wants to begin a long series of questions
Yeah.
to elicit a thinking process.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, there's a part of me, and it may be the prompting, saying, no, this is not your responsibility to
That's right.
figure out for this person what it
That
is
is
they're
it.
supposed to be doing,
That's
nor
it.
are you necessarily supposed to lay out the breadcrumbs.
Nope. It's not
Okay?
our job to do
Because
that for
you
others.
don't know where those breadcrumbs are supposed to go and
That
where
is
they're supposed to
correct.
lead to.
And maybe there's going to be birds that eat it along the way that are like, thanks, thanks, thanks. And the other person isn't even seeing the
Yeah.
breadcrumbs because it's not for them.
Plus the fact I've got enough to do with to figuring, not just figuring out, which I have, but I mean figuring out what it is I'm supposed to be doing.
That's
I've
right.
got time to help you figure out how where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing.
Nope.
What am I, your master? No,
Right.
no, no. I refuse to take on that role.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's where we give up responsibility,
Yeah.
right? That's where we become the victim, because it's the moment that we turn to someone else and say, what do you think I should be doing? Or what can you tell me what you want to do so I can decide what I need to do? No. No, 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 no. The answer is within each and every one of us.
We might
And
be human beings living a spiritual beings living a human experience, and that's where the similarities end.
that's it. That's it. Because we're all here to learn something.
Yeah.
We're all here to learn something. And what does that mean? Because we already have all the knowledge we need within us, as the Toltec people say, as so
Ooh.
many traditional indigenous tribal communities have always said, is we already have the knowledge within us.
Yeah.
The knowledge is always going to be there. It's just a matter of tapping into that knowledge by listening to our inner voice. Vocal empowerment is all about that. It's trusting the process, trusting the inner voice, trusting the universe to have our back. And if we can listen and listen and listen and listen to the messages that are coming through, then the answers are always right in front of us.
Yeah.
Just like that ball we're holding in our hands. It's right in front of us,
Yeah.
you know?
Terrabundance is my guest, and terrabundance.com is the website. We will be linked to her website so you can find out more about her, the work she does, as well as some of the cool things that she has for you through right now, through a few things through Etsy, including the Oracle cards, the I Am Oracle cards. I think I'm going to order a set of those. Those are really kind of cool. As we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and as I've said before, I love having return guests. I don't necessarily like to have it 8 years from the last appearance, but hey, we'll take what we can get. Uh, Maybe now we'll have you back a little more often.
Right.
I will tell you, I've had this one nagging thought in the back of my mind. You know, Richard, you need to, and especially nowadays because everybody's doing Zoom, you need to put together a panel of 10 or 20. Now, 10 or 20, is that even manageable? Maybe
Right.
quite that big, but to talk about a particular subject, have a particular topic in mind for that particular group of people. In other words, you select the right people,
Yeah.
participate in that, then get them all on Zoom, get everybody oriented and situated and so forth. And then you just go to town and
Oh,
have fun with it. And you are then hopefully not only helping the listener to become more educated about that particular topic, to help the listener to consider other perspectives, other points of view.
right.
You referred to, I believe the number was, what was it? Oh, 8 billion. 8
Hmm.
billion different perspectives on the
Yeah.
world. I often comment on the issue, for example, of privacy. And when I was at that Christian station, it was right near the end of my tenure there. In 95, I had gotten onto the computer. The moment I got onto the computer and specifically onto the internet,
Mm.
I knew instinctively, even though I didn't maybe consciously, I knew instinctively I have no privacy. But what was more profound, I had already come to the awareness and the conclusion, Terra, I've never had privacy.
Mm.
The divine is omnipotent,
Yeah.
omniscient, and
Yeah.
omnipresent, knows
That's right.
everything, past, present, and future.
That's right.
Now, if so, and I've said this before too, if I've been interviewing folks for 40 plus years, I've shared about my life as I've lived it. If somebody's been following those interviews, they could actually write my unauthorized biography.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Fine. And I come to this point. There are 8 billion people in the universe, on the planet. Okay. Well, what difference does it make if they all know the good, the bad, and the ugly about
That's
Richard
right.
Dugan?
That's right.
Because God already knows. And besides,
That's it.
of those 8 billion, most of them don't care
Most of them
because
don't
they're
care.
too busy living their lives. And those
That's
that
right.
apparently do care, first of all, I'm flattered.
Right.
I am flattered that you
Sure.
find my life and my experiences and my social security number and my PIN number so interesting that you have to have them.
Yeah.
Because when I'm dead and gone, your access is dead and gone,
That's
okay?
right. That's
Although I've
right.
got another 40 plus years to stay
Oh,
alive.
yeah.
But people are so worried about privacy,
I know.
and yet, and here's what's so funny and ironic, and I will laugh with
Mm.
the irony. Every time you go to install a program on any device connected to the internet,
Yep.
and you click, just instinctively, you click, I accept your terms and conditions, you have just thrown away your right to privacy.
Yep. Yep. In that moment.
But if you don't believe that it's important, that it's relevant, as I've kind of described, the
Right.
universe already knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what difference does it make how many other people know?
Right. No, I've had the exact same experience and thought. Like, people are always, are you worried that such and such is going to happen? I'm like, if I live my life through worry, then what is my life going to look like?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Terra out loud? Hell no, it's not. So I'm Terra out loud, and my tagline on my YouTube videos when I do Tuesdays with Terra is be you out loud. If we can't be who we are here to be out loud because we're afraid of someone else somehow victimizing us in some way, shape, form, or other, then we're not living our lives. We're just sitting in a corner, shivering, waiting for life to happen to us. And then we complain about being victims, you know?
Yeah. And I will tell you that living, and believe it or not, I actually did live in that space for a very
Mhm.
brief period of time.
Mhm.
I never lived in the victimhood when I was in grade school and high school being bullied. Okay.
Mhm.
It was only after I got out of school, out of high school, and
Hmm.
I took 6 months off to my parents' consternation. Um, that when my mother said, "Well, why don't you go apply at one of the local religious radio stations?" And of course, I said, "No, I don't want them shoving their beliefs down my throat." Look at me now, Mom.
Right. Right.
um, but I remember I wanted to do something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I came back with the phrase, I want to do these things, but I'm not the one that labeled me legally blind. The state did. They're the ones that made
Ah,
that decision, not
ah,
me. I'm getting around just fine, blah, blah, blah. And so now
right.
it's the state's fault.
Yeah,
Can't accomplish certain things. And I was in that state for a very brief, I mean, we're talking maybe a few months
sure.
because it was exhausting.
Of course it's exhausting to live an experience that we did not prepare ourselves for, we did not anticipate.
Yeah.
And to then be like, well, is this my new experience? I had no idea that this was going to happen, so this sucks. I mean, who's who was going to tell me that I was going to be divorced twice? I'm a decent person, I'm a kind and generous and giving and love and very prone to codependency person, so that's where it all came from. But at the time I didn't understand that I was so codependent that the divorces led me to recognize my codependence. I could have sat and wallowed in my pain and victimization of this person did that and they cheated on me and who, all these things. But instead I sat in that, kind of like you, for a minute. I sat in that, and then I realized, you know what, these things were, who's the common denominator here? That would be me. And
Oh, I mean, you've heard the stories of people like, oh, I don't know, Zsa Zsa Gabor, or
yeah,
people who've been married 5, 6, 7, 8,
right,
9, 10 times,
yeah.
and they start sitting there going, oh yeah, this person was this way and this way and this way and that da 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 da. Da. And again, my mind goes to the same thing you just said. Well, wait a minute, but there's one common denominator in
Who's
all
the
that.
center of all of that?
You,
That would be number one.
yeah.
I want to just briefly, quickly say something about my website because you've mentioned it a couple of times. Part of the reason that it's a very simple templated website is, now this is not a defense mechanism that I'm sharing. I'm
No,
really
no, no.
sharing it because the other website that I'm working on, the Abundant Earth Cooperative, is going to contain everything that I actually want to be on my website.
Right.
But the one that I have up right now is very simple because that's all I want people to be like in tune with in this moment.
Hmm.
And so when someone goes on there and sees this very basic, simple templated website, they're not even going to find all of my offerings on there. They're just going to find a few of the things that are kind of key headline, little things that I want people to find me for. And then once the Abundant Earth Cooperative website is launched, hopefully, like I said, by end of October, maybe sooner, I will have all of my stuff then available through my website. So then it will be no more Etsy. It'll all be products and services and everything else through my Abundant Earth Cooperative website, where many other people will also be on.
Right. Terrabundance.com. Terrabundance.com is the website, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we're here with Terra Bundance. And I want to ask you probably the question that people out there right now are just going, come on, Richard. No, go ahead, ask her the question. No, 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 please, please ask her the question.
Please.
Is Terra Bundance on your birth certificate?
It is not on my birth certificate.
And how did you, not why, how did you come to choose that name?
So, like many people who have changed their name, I will say the most obvious answer, which is the name chose me. And the way that it came through was so I'm going to go ahead and share just my a little brief story about that process. I was on my birth certificate is Terra, Tara, farmer. And so Terra Farmer is a powerful name. It's a, it's about the earth. It's about, all the things that I think are beautiful. And people would call me Terra Firma in college and, you know,
Oh my goodness.
Earth Mama and all these things. So I went through the first however many years, 30 plus years with that name. Of course, I changed it when I got divorced, and I was so grateful that I got it back when I got the divorce. And I didn't change it in my second marriage. And so I held on to Terra Farmer because she was, who I wanted to be. And then one day I woke up and thought, you know what? I've been planting seeds like a farmer. I've been sowing the soil like a farmer, and I don't seem to be reaping the benefits and the rewards that I know I'm capable of experiencing. So I need to really shift my vibration. I need to shift my energy. And I don't know what that means. I just know that I want to claim a new name that's going to help me now start pulling all the things out of the earth that I've been planting since possibly even before I came onto this into this life, right?
Yeah.
And so I sat with a friend and we were talking about it and joking and making, the silliest names we could think of. And she was like, what is your main goal? And I said, abundance. I just want to be really tapped into my abundant experience, my abundant life. And she was like, well, what about Terrabundance? And we laughed. I mean, I was crying. We were laughing so hard because we thought that was the funniest name we'd ever heard. And I was like, yeah. And if anybody calls me Bun Dance, we can make them do a little bun dance with me,
There
like
you go.
shake their booty. And so that was hilarious. And then we breathed for a second and both of us looked at each other and went, oh shit, that's it. That's it. That's the name. And I was like, well, if I'm going to keep my first, because I said I really kind of want to keep my first name, but I would love to spell it Terra, because I've wanted to spell it like that since I was a kid. And so I was like, Terrabundance is about earthly abundance. And so then I get to live as proxy, not just for myself, but for others to see that abundance is possible. What does an abundant life look like? I'm going to come through and I'm going to choose this name and I'm going to live as proxy to show people what it means to live an abundant life, to live the life that you're here to choose and be and experience and express as. And so, yeah, thus Terrabundance. And people call me Terra Abundance a lot. I'm like, that's cool too.
Sure.
But legally, my name was changed about, it was 2010 that my name was changed to Terrabundance.
And Terrabundance is one word.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
it's not on the, no, I mean, it is on my website,
Okay.
Terrabundance, and on my YouTube channel and
Okay.
everything else. It's my handle, Terrabundance. It's even my business name. I actually call my business Terrabundance, and all one word. But my
Cool.
actual name is Terra Bundance, and my last name being Bundance. And whenever people say that, I always, I get these questioning looks like, where does that name come from?
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
always wait for people to ask me that question. So
Well,
yeah.
what's interesting though is the ground that you furrowed and laid the seeds in and everything, and you've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, 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 waiting,
Mhm.
waiting. Maybe the seeds you planted actually took much longer than
That's
you
right.
expected to
That's right.
finally germinate and then begin to grow.
That's right.
And I think that that's part of our human experience, granted, but it's also part of one of those lessons that we need to learn. You can talk a little bit about this, and that is that, sorry, folks, I hate to say this to you, we need to develop
Mm.
patience.
Mm.
And my wife hates it when I use that phrase because she is of the mind, I know I want patience, but I want it now.
Now. Yeah, I love that word patience because I am a Taurus. My sun sign is Taurus, my rising sign is Capricorn, and my moon is Libra, which is my saving grace because otherwise I would just be stuck in the dirt all the time. And so I'm stubborn as the day is long, right? And if you ask my parents, they would laugh and laugh and laugh that yes, I've always been a very stubborn person. And what I started figuring out in my later years, in the last say 15 or so years, is that there's two sides of that coin.
Mm-hmm.
There's stubbornness and there's patience. And I've always been an incredibly patient person. And I might be impatient about things, but I'm not impatient about my process. And I'm not impatient when somebody else is working through something. I tend to be somebody that can hold space really well. And that's where my groundedness comes from. I'm very grounded. I'm very tuned in to spirit, but I'm also very grounded in the knowledge that we all have our timing, we all have our way of doing things, and we all have our process. In school, that sucked because everybody expects you to keep up with everyone else. And I was not the kid who kept up with everyone else. The public school was not built for my kind of brain. It's built for people to memorize, do the things, toe the line, take your test, whatever. And I had test anxiety because I could not do things as fast as everybody expected us to do. And until I got into college, I did really badly in school. So once I got into college, I was like, oh, I get to create my own curriculum. Cool. And I did it in my time. I got 2 associate degrees in 5 years. I never even got a bachelor's degree because I didn't need it. By that point, I'd realized exactly what I was meant to be doing. And it involved partially doing the school thing. And now it involves the school of life, So patience is one of those things that I happen to have come by naturally. And I hear so often that it's what everybody else, not everybody, there's a lot of us that have patience, but that so many people struggle with. And I feel like when we can be patient with ourselves and then outwardly with others, life can slow down just a little bit. It doesn't have to mean that all the people who love to do things quickly have to do it at my pace. No, because I'm a turtle, I'm going to go very, very slowly, very methodically with consciousness and awareness through a process. But once I get what I'm doing, I'm off and running. Then I become the hare. But then there's some people like my amazing husband who is constantly quick. He's a rabbit. That's his Chinese zodiac even, so he's a hare in the Chinese zodiac. He moves and goes and quick. And there's times where he and I have to bring each other into each other's realities. He helps me get things moving and I help him slow things down. So when we can find that symbiotic relationship with the people that we are in relationship with, that's when we get to experience joy, in relationship, in friendship, in business, in whatever else we're putting, in our lives. I don't have the answer. I only have the answers for me,
Here. We're talking with Terra Bundance here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, along with Terra Bundance. Terrabundance.com is the website which we will be linked to. Just reminding you, ladies and gentlemen, that this program is here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday mornings at 1 a.m. and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. The reason I chuckle is because it's like for just a split second, I forgot what I was saying and where I was supposed to go next. And then it came back. And, it's like the tape broke and then I spliced it in a split second. We are streaming at those times, by the way, of 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Sunday, 1 a.m. Monday, and 9 a.m. Wednesday. We're streaming at those times at richarddugan.com. We have podcasts at SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations on the internet that I've completely forgotten about because it's been so long since I stuck that RSS feed. By the way, do you know what RSS stands for?
I've heard it before, but I don't recall.
I could not believe when I read it. Really simple script. That's it.
Funny.
I'm looking for some big $15 words. That's it.
Right.
Anyway, so we're there. We're also on
That's
YouTube,
funny.
as I get sidetracked so easily. We're on YouTube, Richard Dugan, and Tell Me Your Story, where you can watch these interviews and you can see Terra. And we hope that you will do so. We also want you to spend time going within and listening to the very thing we've been talking about all program long, listening to that still small voice, listening to and following the promptings. I know at first it's very uncomfortable because your mind is going, no, 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 I make those decisions.
Mhm.
Nobody else needs to make those decisions. But I've made peace with my mind, and you can do the same because I've told my mind, my personality, hey, you are valuable to me, and
Mhm.
I need you to be there, but I also need you to give me some time, so to speak, away.
Yeah.
And I'll be back. I promise I'll be back, and we
Yep.
will have a blast with what I come back with. So make friends. Don't push it
That's right.
aside. Don't shut it down. Just say, look, could you just for a few minutes turn the volume down
Right.
and let me do my thing here, and then when I come back, boom, man, we're gonna go to town with this. We
Yep.
also ask that if you can support us financially, we would be so gratefully appreciative of that. We have a PayPal account for that very reason, and it's for your security as well as ours. I've been using PayPal, gosh, I can't even remember when I started with PayPal. It's got to be 10, 15, maybe more years. Be that as it may, if you'd like to support us, you go to PayPal. I want to send money to my email address, just put in richard@richarddugan.com. So simple. And thank you, thank you, thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We are talking with Terra Bundance here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is always a pleasure to have returning guests. Terra Abundance is my guest. Terrabundance.com is the website which we're linked to. Terra, I wanted to ask you as we are wrapping up
Mm.
this particular edition of Tell Me Your Story, to talk to us about a subject we've touched upon on many programs, the
Mm.
last few programs actually that I've done, and it's dealing with, and there are a lot of words to describe it.
Mm.
Transitioning, obviously, dying,
Mm.
death and dying. Bernie Siegel, who I've had on this program, in talking about his wife who died.
Mm.
And I began to say, well, so when your wife transitioned, and he stopped me immediately, said, what do you mean transition? She didn't transition. She died.
Mm.
So in deference to Bernie Siegel, I prefer using the other words only because death and dying are so negatively charged.
Mhm.
But also in respect to Bernie,
Sure.
um, I'm wondering, how has your understanding and awareness of our physical mortality
Mm.
juxtaposed, if you will, with our spiritual immortality, how has that changed and or grown in your own mind and heart and soul?
Mm. Cool. That's a big question, Richard. So it's interesting. And I had a child later in life, and I was 43 when I had him, and I had no idea that I was going to have a kid. And so he's changed kind of a lot of things. I wouldn't say everything, but he certainly changed a lot of things about the way I look at mortality. Before that, I was never afraid of the concept or the idea of death. Since having him, I feel like I think about it a little bit more than I ever did before. Partially because I don't want to leave before I can instill as much whatever support, guidance, love as possible in his life. And I also don't want him to go away, so it's like these there's things that kind of show up that become much more human when you make that strong of a bond with another being,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a partner, a parent, or a child, or whatever. And so I think that a lot of people who have fear about death probably are very connected to that idea or that essence of another human being.
Mm-hmm.
um that being said, I also know that I've connected so much with other beings who have passed on. I wouldn't call myself a medium. Sometimes they just come through, whether I'm doing a channeling session or I'm doing a session with a client. People will just show up and just start sharing information through images. And I'll say something to the person, to the client, and they'll just start crying. And it's this awareness that I understand that we're still connected. We still have those threads that are connected to other beings who've been in this reality and then gone out of this reality. I also understand the concept of alternate realities or timelines, different timelines. And so I think that there's different levels of us in different timelines and realities, and that we're connected to all of it, you know? So we're so connected in that spiritual realm that when we can trust, again, I mean, it's probably just going to keep coming back to this. For some reason, feels like the theme of our conversation, that something is something in our essence and our beingness in this world is connected to everything. And this has been the theme of my life. It's why I wanted to start something like the Human Tribe or the Abundant Earth Cooperative, because we are all connected. You know, we are all connected, whether alive in bodies or in spirit or in any other energy form you can think of. We're all connected. And so I think that when death happens, what we call death, the ending of a physical life, a new experience happens. Jonathan Livingston Seagull is a perfect example of that. That book by Richard Bach, I grew up since I was probably 7. I was reading that book. And there's so many layers to that book that the more you read it throughout your life, the more you get out of it. And the last time I read it was to my son, who at the time was 7. And sharing that book with him, he started asking the same kind of questions I asked my parents as a kid, which is like, what does it mean when he turns to light and becomes another being? You know, I think that that's what we do. I think that we are capable of continuing our experiences through other energy fields, and that we are still connected, you know, even if we're willing to be open to that. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what's coming through.
And to that, in reference to your son, share what you will here. How metaphysically inclined is he, based upon uh, your influence, if you will, and what you just described about, you know, you don't want to leave yet because
Yeah.
how is he in that regard?
Oh, it's such a great question, because he is not like me at all. Like, I mean, he is and he isn't, because when somebody sees him with me, they're like, he is your kid. You know, he looks like me. He has an energy. He's a Leo. Matter of fact, he has 5 Leos in his chart. So, I mean, that kid, you would think that he's just like out there. No, he's very introspective. He's a bit of an introvert. He's an internal processor. I'm not that. I'm exactly the opposite of that. He is not spiritually inclined in terms of, he's more mental, left brain thinking. He's very intelligent. All the things that I think he gets partially from my husband, from, you know, and all these parts that you see in him, you can see like, oh, that's a little bit of my brother. That's a little bit of my mom. That's my dad. That's Michael. That's me. You know, we see a lot of us in him, but he is his own being. And because I had him later in life, I have the energy, the space, maybe the finances, whatever it is that allows him the space to be who he's here to be, as opposed to feeling like I have to force some kind of agenda on him.
Hmm.
So he's homeschooled. You know, he taught himself how to read when he was 4.5.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I literally completely by himself, you know, the whatever little things that he was watching and you know, leapfrog that he was doing and things like that, he was able to figure it out. But he literally taught himself completely how to read by the time he was 4.5, and he's been reading voraciously since then, like my husband and my brother and
Mhm.
my mom, you know. And so you see so much intelligence in this being, and he will ask the most intelligent questions, and then he will challenge me every time I give him my response, because he's a Leo and I'm a Taurus, and we're the most headstrong beings on the zodiac, so it's like there's that piece of him, and then there's also this essence that when you meet him, you're like, where does this being come from? He's so special. I think all children are special. They all have their own form of special. I have so many people come to me and just say, what is it? Why am I so drawn to his energy? I'm like, because he gets to be whoever he's here to be. And he doesn't have, I've got that as well growing up. So I was blessed to have that as a child in the 70s in the South with my parents, raising me in a similar way to how I'm raising him, which is giving us space to become that being that we're here to be, and in each moment, he's here to teach. He's here to, to spout knowledge. He's so smart. When he decides he's going to take on something, he just takes it on. But that's like me, and so spiritually though, you wouldn't just automatically see it like you might have seen it in me. And so it's fascinating. I think they're here to teach us so many things about ourselves, to help us grow and evolve and learn. And that is no question that is what that child is here to do. One of the many things he's here to do.
You mentioned being homeschooled, and what I found so fascinating in the last 2.5 years is the complaints on the part of parents over the fact that the schools were closed.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, wait a minute, aren't you the same people who were criticizing the educational system in this country, that it's so inferior, it's so bad, my kids are being indoctrinated, and you want them to go back?
Yeah.
Explain that one to me, Lucy.
Nope.
I don't
no
understand
explaining.
how it is. It's like going back. I mean, the school is on fire, but we want our kids to go back.
Yeah.
Or
Sure.
school is being shot. This is the other part of it. The school is being shot up by gunmen, and you want your kids to go back?
Go there? I have a hard time with it.
I
have to
understand it.
I don't understand it either. And of course, there's so many things that is not for me to understand, right?
Sure. Me too.
I'm here to learn, right? I'm here to learn my lessons. You're here to learn yours. Everyone else is here to learn theirs. And none of us are, quote, right. They're only, again, I'm going to come back to that same phrase. We're only right for us.
Correct.
And so anybody who tries to tell me, if I were to try to, I can't force my agenda on anyone. It's not my place to do that, for one thing. It's a waste of energy and time and breath and life. And so if I'm going to live my life not judging others for what they choose to do, then I'm going to expect them to be the same way for me. And so anytime I have this conversation, I want to be very mindful that, I'm not them. I don't know why some people would choose to do things that I would choose not to do, but then they don't understand why I choose to do things that I do, you know?
Yeah. Well, two things. Number one, I bet you your son was none too happy when he heard that the public schools were shutting down due to COVID, and his wasn't.
Yeah, right. No, he doesn't. What's great, and let me just share, Richard, like I say homeschooling because that's what most people are comfortable with. Believe it or not, I actually, we do unschooling, which means that it is child-led learning. And so many people have so many issues with that phrase. And unschooling means that children have a better sense of what they're here to learn than anyone else.
Yeah.
We're all here to learn something, and nobody else knows better than us, right? And so because I was homeschooled before it had been legalized in Georgia, I was homeschooled for about 2.5 years and my brother for about 3.5 years. My parents ended up kind of naturally, without knowing it, my mom specifically, because she was the one that was home with us, to basically unschool us. We had a program that we followed, a curriculum that she ordered from California, because that was the only place we could get it from. And we would do all the work in one day, because my brother and I figured out that if we did all the work for the week in one day, then the rest of the week was free to do whatever we wanted. And mom was like, that's what we do. If you want to take 2 days, if you want to take 5 days, if you want to take all 7 days to get your work done, that's up to you. And so basically unschooled us in that way with a particular curriculum. I haven't found anything that makes sense to me in terms of curriculum to work with my child. For one thing, he will not sit still for, unless it's something he wants to do, for more than say 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I slip things in to things that we're doing all the time. I'll be like, so what do you think that, what is that plus that, what does it mean when you do this and this? Just asking scientific questions, historical. We're always kind of instilling little historical knowledge throughout his life. And he loves dinosaurs. So we're always thinking like, what does it mean? Just like about things that he loves. And that's how he's learning, so when somebody asks him what grade he's in, we both look at each other and kind of smile, and we're like, we don't know. For his age, he'd probably be going into second grade right now, but does he have the school's version of second grade knowledge? No, but he's got sometimes more than that. He's got a fifth grade knowledge or an eighth grade knowledge in other things,
Yeah. And as they do in a courtroom, when either the prosecution or the defense, their witness mentions something that wasn't part of what was supposed to be brought out, but it was mentioned.
Right.
The opposing counsel says, Your Honor, I'd like to cross-examine this witness.
Yeah.
And they start asking questions based upon that which the witness has revealed, which the other side goes, I object, Your Honor. This was not the... I'm sorry, counselor, but you opened that door. So
you did.
You opened the door, Terra, because you mentioned history. And and again, folks, first of all, I need to...
I already know where you're going.
I need to go back, and I need to say that when I made the comment about why parents would want to send their kids to a facility that has the risk of the children losing their lives, I'm not being critical of those parents who sent them and unfortunately the child was lost due to that. I am saying, why aren't we making spaces for our children to be safe? That's all. That's all I'm saying.
No, totally understood.
I want to jump forward to this other issue. You talked about history. And the biggest controversy, by the way, I have to tell you that the name of this particular curriculum, it's the wrong name.
It's the wrong name. I know.
It's the wrong name. It's not critical race theory.
No.
It's the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth about history. When I was a kid growing up, I learned that Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492.
That's right.
And I learned about all the discoveries and this and that and the other thing. On the quinticentennial, I believe that's correct, 500th anniversary in 1992, I began hearing 3 different versions of history, the history of Christopher Columbus.
That's right.
And I'm going, okay, there are now 3. He's an angel over here. He's the devil over here.
Yep.
And he's something of a mixture in the middle.
Yep.
Which is probably more accurate than...
Usually the middle is where the truth lives.
But when you start talking about the mislabeled curriculum of critical race theory, I'm sitting here going, so are you telling me that you do not want our children to know the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Yes, that's the answer. The answer is yes.
Country and the history of this nation, even going back 4 or 5, I don't know, maybe 600 years with the pilgrim. 400 years with the pilgrims and so forth. Because it was not. It was not a great thing. I have to say that in the 60s and 70s, a satirist by the name of Stan Freberg, who I really, really admire, never met him, I wish I had, did a couple of albums, double albums actually, that I listened to in the 70s when I was going to school, grade school and high school with my best friend. And it was called The United States of America, the Early Years, from the founding prior to the Constitution and so forth. And there's this one shtick that they do. They sing this one song regarding this one guy. He's running for office. He's a white European, obviously. He's running for office. And how are you? And his friend is asking, so how are you going to get the Indian vote? You could maybe say that you're going to put one of them on the council. No, because if that's the case, they'll just take orders from Chief Powhatan and go. And then they do a song. This is where I was going with this. The song is entitled I know what we'll do. We'll take an Indian to lunch. That'll show them we're just a regular group. Take an Indian to lunch this week, and so on and so forth. Very offensive today, probably.
Oh, yeah.
But the truth of that history is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What really happened?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know for certain that it wasn't a gun battle between Abraham Lincoln and what the hell was his name in Ford's Theater? I can't remember the assassin's name.
Right. I can't remember his name.
Anyway, that they were having a shootout and Lincoln lost.
Right.
Or whatever. We only seem to find out 75 to 100, 200 years later about what the real truth of the matter was.
The truth, the whole truth. Yeah.
In addition to sexual orientation of different individuals, and again, and the list goes on. Mm-hmm. How are you able to, just in terms of history, both national and global, how are you able to get the whole truth in that regard, or at least as much of it as is possible? Where do you go? I mean, the internet is ripe with all kinds of theories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great question, because I actually do have a really, what I think is a pretty good answer. I take social justice courses with a dear friend of mine named Jen Moore, Moore. And I believe her website is jen-moore.com. And she is a social justice feminist. I would never have called myself a feminist, only until recently. And the reason that I couldn't call myself a feminist is because there's many different versions of what a feminist is. And there's as many versions of feminism as there are feminists. And so I had a hard time until I understood Bell Hook's perspective, a very amazing Black woman who wrote a lot of books about feminism. And so I was able to start learning that, there's different ways to look at it. So it's not necessarily that I claim it, it's that I understand it better.
Yeah.
But I also understand race theories, critical race theory in the term that it's actually meant to be, which is here's a bunch of ways to learn about the history of our planet, not just the United States, but just how we are in the world with each other. And I've been taking courses with her for about four years, and learning language, learn differently. She teaches about LGBTQIA plus community. She teaches about BIPOC community. She teaches about feminist community. And she teaches about the things that aren't necessarily taught in school, unless you decide to go that route when you're in college. And she's a white woman who's basically teaching white people how to have a better understanding of that perspective. And so that's how I'm practicing and learning how to have conversations with my son, and being able to have a broad conversation with my son, because my husband was a lawyer and he was involved in politics. And so he has a very heady perspective of history. And then he's also adopted 5 children that are not the same color skin as him. Or 4 children. And so he's been able to grow through his life, learning more about what it means to be in a different reality than what us white people have been living. And so I just share what I've learned, and I share what I'm learning, and I share it from a place of it's a constant learning process. I don't tell him this is the way, the only way, because my parents never did that to me, and I've turned out to be a healthy person who's willing to question many things. I'm willing to question pretty much everything. Yeah. And when I question, I learn what works and what's healthy and what's not just for me, but for the people that I am in the world with. And that's how I want my son to kind of understand the same thing. Question everything, trust what keeps showing up as the most obvious evidence of to the truth. And, don't just believe what people tell you just because they say it's true.
I guess one of the biggest, I'm going to say misnomers, because I'm not familiar with the curriculum other than what I've heard. from other people who are opposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that within the curriculum, you are told that white men and women are bad. They're evil. They've done horrible things to all of the brown and black people of the
Yep.
world and all other colors and so forth and so
Yep.
on. It's like, if that's what they are teaching, that part needs to be eliminated because,
It's not what they're teaching. They're teaching the truth.
yeah,
And the problem is that people don't want to see the truth. They don't want to be seen as the bad guy. I here's a great suggestion for anyone, and I know other people who don't like the whole critical race theory curriculum would disagree with me to share this, but the book by Howard Zinn called A People's History of the United States is one of the best books out there, in my opinion. And it was written a while ago, and there's also a children's version for young children and teens.
yeah,
And we have that book. It's out of print. I had to buy it used online just to be able to get it. But that's going to be more based in evidence, not just hearsay.
yeah.
And so there's nothing in there. And the problem is that most people who are fighting it and argue, and I live in Georgia, so Georgia's one of the biggest voices against critical race theory being taught in school. So I have this around me all the time.
Yeah.
And what you can find is that most of the people who are screaming, this can't be, are the people who haven't even read the actual curriculum.
Well, here's an interesting irony. We have a definition that was created in 2001 of what a terrorist is, right?
Mm.
And what the actions of a terrorist are in a general sense. And you live in Georgia, or the South, during the Civil War, right? It has been said, based upon our modern definition of terrorism, the Confederacy was a terrorist organization.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying they were a terrorist organization.
Right. Based on the definition.
That's it. So now, if you go off and you run with that, it's like, yeah, you're asking for trouble.
You're asking for trouble. And that's why we're not
two different, and you can say, I guess, diametrically opposed views of the way that people wanted to live. The people in the North wanted to live one way with all people being equal. People in the South wanted to live their way with half the people, so to speak, being equal. And again, for whatever their reasons are, that's what
happened.
That was the way it was. Yeah. And I was listening to a program yesterday where they were criticizing the way in which certain cultures around the world treat women, treat children, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm going, oh, wait a minute, that's the way that they are. I mean, who are we to say? And I sit here thinking of, you and I both kind of grew up in the same era, I suppose, thinking of Star Trek and the Prime Directive.
Yep.
Of non-interference. Who are we to tell them that their way is wrong or bad? What we do is we will support those individuals and or groups who don't want to live that way.
Right.
Saying, this isn't what we want. We've seen just enough.
Right.
Of the way you live. We'd like to have that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And when I think about the broad issue of immigration globally, not just in the United States, I'm sitting here thinking, it's not those immigrants who are wanting into the respective countries. It's not their fault.
No, right.
It's ours. Because there was a wonderful Star Trek episode where this creature latched on to the Enterprise. And
I remember that one.
Draining the energy.
Yep.
Power, right? You remember?
Yep. Very much. Yeah.
And do you remember the solution? It was summed up in this phrase.
Turn it off, right? Didn't they just...
No, don't turn it off.
I can't remember.
Sour the milk.
That was it.
So it's not palatable anymore.
That's right. Yep.
But we're not doing that.
No, we're not.
We're not doing that. And
we try to force...
I don't know how we would do it. All I know is that these are all of these people who want to move into other countries, including ours. They see something and they want it here. To me, it is just, it's a sad situation. And we are talking with Terra Bundance. Terrabundance.com is the website. I know we've kind of gone far afield. My last interview that I did with a gentleman we've had on twice, his name is Christian James. He's got a couple of several great children's books, one about Christmas, one about Halloween. He's got these little stuffed Dracula dolls and this kind of stuff, very much into that stuff. Disneyland, the whole thing, having fun. And we're talking about a man, and this is the thing that always gives me hope. He's talking about a man who's a professed Christian, nothing wrong with it, okay, who is doing what he's doing with these characters and these holidays that I would hear at the Christian station. Oh my God, Halloween, it's the day of the devil and da 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 da. And here is this man who is basically writing these books for kids, trying to help them to understand why mom, dad, brother, sister, uncle, Fred, grandpa died in the military or otherwise, and trying to help them to understand and build community. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to better understand. And I want to thank you so much for helping us to do that here on this program. Again, I'll say this again and over again to our listeners. We're not here intentionally trying to offend anybody. We're just sharing our observations of what's already out there and asking you maybe to take a look humorously at the ironies that just seem so contradictory to the reality of what can be. What can be. And it can be a wonderful place. I believe it is a wonderful place. And at the same time, I also believe there's room for improvement in this material world. But I will also say this, Terra. You, your son, your husband, your ex-husbands, my former wife, my present wife, and we are all perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? And again, I could go down and list all 8 billion people. They're all perfect.
That's right.
And it's a beautiful thing. So I thank you so much for helping us to elucidate and illuminate that particular subject.
Yeah, I love it. I have a flower of life tattoo on my arm to remind me of that every single day, to look at that and remember that we're all part of this whole system. Yeah, we're all cells in the planet, in the body of the universe. And
you just gave me a clue as to what kind of a tattoo I would have. I've been thinking about this for many, many years. The Kabbalah, or Tree of Life.
Yeah, it's a beautiful one.
If you look at the Kabbalah and you look at a picture of the Starship Enterprise, the original series, from the bow, straight on from the bow, you see a portion of the Tree of Life.
That's fascinating. I gotta look at that.
I don't know if Roddenberry intended that, but
probably.
I love it. I love it. Well, Terra, I thank you so much for being with us on the program. I haven't asked you these questions in 8 years.
No, it's been 12 years. It's been
12 years. Oh my God. Well, hey, I went to public school. But I take personal responsibility for any deficiencies in the mathematical I can't even think of the word I want now. Anyway, I take full responsibility for my math acuity. Be that as it may, as it stumbles on through this, I do want to ask you these 3 questions. Again, thanking you so much for being with us. Again, folks, Terrabundance.com is the website, Terrabundance.com. And we hope that you'll go to her website and find out more. I'm going to go to your website and go to that SD site and get a set of those cards.
Great.
Because I just think it'd be a lot of fun. And like I said before, I may have to get a big table and lay all of those cards out and just start, by the way, can you play solitaire with your cards? Probably.
Probably not.
All right. The first question. Who is Terrabundance?
A whole perfect being who is here to love and be a part of the world that I am experiencing and the world that I am creating.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you are doing now?
To remind people that we all belong, that we're all here for a reason and a purpose, and that we can do this together as a community, and that we are all one. We're all connected.
And finally, What is your life's purpose?
Hmm. Almost exactly what I just shared. And to live the expression of what it means to be Terra out loud, and to support others and to show others that it's okay for them to do the exact same thing for them, and that we all have the opportunity to be us out loud.
Terrabundance has been my guest. It's really been a pleasure. And normally I would elucidate and elaborate on the whole aspect of participating in the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, by spending time going within and listening. And then go back to the front end of the interview. We talked about all of that, okay? And I think that you're going to have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be fearful. Yeah, there are some parts of us, the shadow side. We got the light side, we got the dark side. But that's what makes us who we are.
Mhm.
And we are perfect, just as we are.
Yep.
And again, Terra, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast. Love to Lal and Jeanette. You know I'm listening.